All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Debate Club. So, this is a platform where we engage in weekly debates and discussions on various topics. The topic for this week is mental health should be an integral part of educational curriculum. Agree or disagree? To set the context for this, there are people basically split up on this topic. Some people agree that mental health should form a part of the educational curriculum, while the others say otherwise. So, for people who advocate for mental health being a part of the educational curriculum, uh, they argue that it equips students with coping mechanisms and skills to regulate their own emotions, which helps them beyond just their academic life, and that issues in students can be identified early on so these mental health issues don't escalate and hinder them from achieving whatever they wish to achieve in the future. And it also helps people understand themselves better from a younger age, like from the school age or whatever, as it is a form, like as it is a form of, you know, learning. It should be a part of the academic life that a student lives, because it is more than just learning for the sake of getting a job or anything. It is more or less a life skill that a student learns. On the other hand, there are critics that say otherwise, that mental health should not form a part of the educational curriculum. That is because they believe that it might overburden the teachers, or the schools may not be well equipped to hire proper mental health professionals to get the job done in a proper manner. And they also argue that the responsibility of teaching kids about mental health and related stuff falls on the parents and not academic professionals like teachers or lecturers. And there is also a privacy concern that in a school setting or in any kind of educational setting, there is a little bit of chance of such sensitive information leaking out and uh, hampering people's lives, because there's a privacy concern. Maybe people do not want others to know what mental health issues they are dealing with. So, in case such sensitive information leaks out, it might cause unanticipated problems. So, with that context in place, we're going to start the debate, and people who wish to speak, you're going to have to raise your hand using the reaction button, and it'll be appreciated if everybody keeps their arguments within 5 minutes time. Thank you. Yes, please, Raghav.
Yeah, I think the arguments against mental health curriculum is kind of weak. I don't think that you know privacy is any more of a concern outside than it is in a school. Maybe you know it can cause some bullying from some people, but that's like another problem that already exists. Like it's not like the bullying is going to stop if they come to know. If there where there is bullying, there'll always be a reason. They'll always invent a reason to bully. So it's a separate problem. But I think that with regards to mental health curriculum, I feel like traditional understanding of mental health is kind of weak. I think that, for example, including practices like meditation or like introducing certain lifestyle, um, incentives. If you follow a certain lifestyle, you get an incentive. Not like it should not be fear induced. So like it should not be a case where people are doing things because there's penalties for not doing a certain way. But if you award positive incentives, it kind of like introduces positive psychology for the students to follow certain habits or certain things. For example, a lot of people don't realize the importance of physical fitness in mental health. If the schools were to offer incentives for those who are maintaining a certain level of fitness, then it kind of like really also takes care of the mental health aspect. And similarly, if they were to um, do certain kinds of practices like yoga or meditation, they get additional points or something. If you have like classes where these practices are being taught and they have credits for it or something like that, I think that alone would help with a lot of the mental health issues. And you don't have to have like traditional counseling where things are done after the fact. Like they let them live whichever lifestyle they want, and the natural consequence of that. For example, if they're addicted to their smartphones, the natural consequence of that is going to be a deterioration of mental health. So at that stage, like if you have 10 counselors and they're all booked up because all the kids are suffering mental health issues, that's not really a smart way to address the issue. So I think if you have like preventative measures made where mental health is like optimized, because like it's a lifestyle aspect. Uh, the epidemic of like mental health issues that we have currently is because people live these unhealthy lifestyles, and where the mental health issues are like a natural consequence of this fast-paced, distraction-filled lifestyle. So I think avoiding all of those, like creating a healthy path for their natural like state of mental wellness, that is more of the approach that I would take in suggesting that it becomes a part of mental health doing like a educational curriculum. So these are my views. I guess like I fall somewhere in the middle. I want mental health measures to be made, but not in the way that people would do if they were following the mainstream um, current wisdom. I feel like it's got a long way to go to understand human psychology and mental health in a very nuanced way. Because I'm saying this as somebody who's been in that industry. I have a background in neuroscience, and I know how rudimentary some of the mainstream understanding of mental health is. And I've learned a lot by looking into the, like practices like meditation, yoga, to understand the value of those things in promoting the kind of like health lifestyle that is good for them. So I would say that is my nuanced view. I think we should recommend it, but we have to follow a nuanced approach.
Thank you, Raghav. Sandeep, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I think there could be a certain line where it should be drawn up to what extent is that mental health should be a part of the curriculum, and is it going to mitigate the effects of education system itself? Because if I'm not wrong, a lot of students, the mental issues of a lot of students are actually related to the education system itself, if I'm not wrong, right? So if the education system itself is crooked, I mean, of course, if there could be some instances where some schools have go beyond the curriculum set by the state board or the central board. But as far as the prescribed curriculum from the state or the central board, they're pretty rudimentary about what the students learn from the books. So if the root cause of the mental issues actually arise from the fact that expectations from the education system and the parents, that they expect from the students to be at a level of certain level of education, at the certain level, to be uh, to have certain success in the schools, that itself is the root, probably is the root cause of the mental issues that probably they are facing. So if the system itself is the cause for the mental issues, is how including mental health issues in that curriculum itself is going to help children, maybe certain parts, but is it if even let's say, even if we do that, does isn't it become the mental health, uh, the very act of making it a part of the curriculum increases more mental issues? I'm like just trying to say that if the system itself is flawed, doesn't matter what we try to include it, because it is only going to make it worse. I'm not really sure how it actually is going to happen. I'm just giving my ostensible view of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. I mean, after listening to Sandeep and Raghav speak, I think I kind of agree with the both of them. And like Raghav said, like the understanding of inculcating mental health in the curriculum traditionally may not be like a wise decision because it deals with the consequence of what is the result of a lifestyle the students are leading. So instead of that, I think, like Raghav said, it is way better to inculcate mental health in the curriculum as a way to improve people's lifestyle. So as a result, their mental health also sees an improvement. So that's my take on that. If there is anybody who wants to speak next, please use the reaction button to raise your hand. Yes, please, Raghav.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Sandeep said. I think that's a very good point that you can basically, the reason why most kids go through that mental health issues is because of the education curriculum itself. And there's this intense like rat race that is like amplified for these kids to sort of like getting a meaningless race and compete. And not everybody is built to compete in a narrow dimension of comparison, right? There are few people that are naturally good at what the competition looks to inspire, and they have a easier time, and they're often more successful. But the others who may have talents elsewhere, they are kind of like left out because like they feel like they're no longer good enough to do it. But the fact is just that they have different strengths. So we need to have obviously like expand the spectrum of like what we recognize as valuable in the education system, because everybody knows that the STEM fields are more prioritized and more valued. And somehow, especially in India, this is like everywhere, but this is general trend everywhere. But India is like very, very like amplified in how bad it is in this regard. So, for example, if somebody is really, really good dancer, and if you actually put them out in the real world, they'll actually figure out a way to like live off of that. But in India, like if they are just a dancer, first of all, you all your time is taken away from you and applied onto something that you don't want to do, and you have no room to exercise that one thing that you are really good at. So obviously, such a person is going to go through a lot of distress, right? And even if you take those people who are naturally inclined to do all these things that they're competing for, just the magnitude of competition, the fact that there are so few IITs or like higher institutions that are very good, and there's so few opportunities for people of talent that even if you are really talented in what they're making you compete with, you actually have a very stressful environment even if you're good at it. So that again causes a lot of like stress and mental health issues. So I think we have to have like a like a larger overhaul. And to be honest, like I feel like this topic is not so controversial. I feel like we all agree that mental health is an important issue. I would love to hear from somebody who really stands behind the other side of the argument. I feel like everybody recognizes the value of mental health. So I'm curious to know what makes this a valid topic, because it seems like it's a one-sided argument.
Thank you, Raghav. Alvin, please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Uh, it's a bit unstable. I mean, the audio is a little unstable, but yes.
Let me just. Okay, now can you hear me? Is it fine? Hello?
Yes, please go ahead, Alvin.
Okay, now as Raghav said, the mental health is particularly very important in our society because it has not in adolescent stage or in our adulthood. It plays a huge roles because we suffer from a lot of mental issues from even from a work stage or even from education perspective. We can suffer a lot of things, but we are not feeling knowledge enough to be uh, know that this is right or this is wrong. But I think mental health is a very important part of our education that should help us to guide us or to tell us in an ethical way to tell what is right and wrong and help us to guide to our life on how to handle such situations. Do we for such a for a example, let's say you are talking to a person and the person is making rude comments you about you tend to try to be detective for tact to that person because you want to be reply to the person in the same way that the person is telling you. But the mentalist suggested that we have to be calm and be positively tell them in a positive manner that they are wrong in their conversation or they are right in the conversation, we that we accept them, then they will be automatically calm down and they will accept their conversation. This is all part of the mental health curriculum. And there is a very huge stigma in mental health that mental health is like it's like taboo topic like sex education. Mental health topic is also considered as a taboo topic in India. I don't know what are the reasons. Maybe anyone who have experienced them as personal can explain them to me. But I still feel like that mental health still stigmatized in our society. That the people are afraid to go outside. Maybe those who are independent cannot feel this impact as such so, but who are those who are in the family situations, they can feel this stigmatization of mental health. That's all. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Alvin. Like Alvin said, I think the stigma around mental health is like such a real thing because, yeah, like he said, it's still a taboo topic. People, especially in the Indian context, are not very open to talk about their own mental health issues or just mental health in general with, I think, everybody. It's not a commonly talked about thing because I think there has been a notion that seeking help from a mental health professional will automatically mean that you're crazy. Like having mental health issues gets you labeled as crazy. I think that is a real thing that happens even today in India. So that is one point that I agree with what Alvin said. So thank you, Alvin. Aniket, please go ahead.
Hello. First of all, sorry if my argument is not very structured. I just thought about it just now. But for some reason, I feel most of the mental health issue. I agree that uh, school curriculum is one of them that the kids are forced to take some courses, get in some science stream and all. But most of them are just passed down from the family itself because we, I assume most of us have come from a very privileged background that, where we do not have to worry about the food or to have to worry about to put food on the plate. But most of the people's household are not very stable in most of the sense. Everyone has some or the other problem. Unemployment or is a big part of it. So somewhere I feel rather than mental health, philosophy or critical thinking should be brought into place because let's say philosophy gives you the analytical tools to dissect your problems. Like let's for example, people should be teach ki, like I understand your parents are abusive, but look it from their point of view. Like they have gone through their phase, like when there was no education, the survival was the most important thing. And so because of such a phase that they have gone through, education through these means which they are educations through the means they are education was the only means through which they could survive, and that's what they know. So and that's the reason they are recommending or pushing you to the science stream rather than consulting the student itself. It would be better to have some consultation with the parents. I understand most of the parents would not agree because okay, so they want their kids to be successful, and the only part they know is through what they see in the society कि like IIT जाओ ये करो वगैरह. But that's it as of this is what I've thought as of now.
Thank you, Aniket. Yadav, please go ahead.
Yeah, I cannot disagree with Aniket regarding, you know, the mental. I mean, I just think that the kids having to understand their parents, that's a very impractical expectation. You have like kids as old as like 10, 12. It's a lot of stress for them to be more of the adults in the situation than their parents. I feel like if we do have measures for dealing with mental health, then it's kind of like you have to bring the parents in as well. If they are the reason why the kids are going through a certain stressful situation, then having a mechanism where the parents are kind of counseled. I think this again is an impractical expectation, but it's more of an infrastructural, impracticality. The fact that for schools to implement something like this, they have to basically make sure that um, they have the right kind of person to guide them. I think this can only happen if you have like a partnership with another organization, maybe an NGO or maybe a private organization or maybe something else, some kind of like a subsidized program where schools can afford these kinds of like services from people who are standardly educated about this. Because a lot of the times it's hard to expect like school administrators in villages to kind of like understand how to deal with things like this. Because a lot of the times even they are kind of like narrow-minded, and you can't expect them to sort of like explain to the parents that sometimes like their behavior can negatively affect their kids. And a lot of the times people feel like that is kind of like intrusion into family affairs and things, but it is true that a lot of them have to upgrade the way they raise their kids. They have to give them a little more freedom, room to make mistakes so that they can learn. And that's when it's easiest to learn. When you're young, the mistakes that you make are typically not going to be so devastating as what you would be doing if you were to learn these skills when you are much older. So we can create a safe environment for these kids to make decisions and do what they want to do. Because a lot of the times the mental health issues that happen are because of like this violation of willingness. They don't care about what the child wants or what they're interested in. They just make them do these things that are expected of them. So I think uh, training the parents to a certain extent should be part of the approach we are taking from the school side.
But sometimes, can I speak? Oh,
Sure, sure.
but sometimes I feel that parents know what's better as well. Because I have some of the friends of mine, like this is just a simple example, but their parents used to send them to for extra maths classes, like chemistry, maths for extra, so to get a more nuanced understanding. And even though they did not pursue it fully, they do thank themselves now. It was helpful. They attended those classes instead of just what we say at that age and at that time they would have probably just wasted their time. I'm not saying playing football or just pursuing a hobby is purely waste of time, but they do think it was better what their parents did. I'm not saying all the parents would do the right thing, some may do the wrong things as well, but most of the time it happens for better, I feel. Another example I could give is like, even my parents put some restrictions on me when I was a teenager during my 10th standard or something. Even they beat me. Like, even I was very fed up at that time. Ki, how are they doing this to me and why? But as I get older, I do get the realization ki, like, thank God they did it to me. Because of that, I did not got into some bad company, for example. Like, bad company was the main thing, that because of them, because of their strictness, because of beating, I did not got into bad company, which would have further messed up my life ahead. And another thing in- to bring to make kids realize of this point of view, I guess, instead of just bringing some professional or anything, stories could help it in a big way. Like some of story uh, the the stories that we get in our English textbook, some of them are really, how to say, impactful to many of us in many ways. If stories are written and included in the syllabus, it will automatically or unconsciously bring that point of view, can bring that point of view into the children's mind without any uh what do you say, serious intrusion, I guess. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Aniket. Prince, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Rose. So I was listening to everyone speaking, and all of the people put great points. Uh, I personally especially resonated with what Sandeep said, and I do understand where Aniket is coming from, where he's saying that we should understand the parents' perspectives as well, and rightly so. They do the best for us that they can. But with the changing times and the situations that we are currently in, it's not just education that can provide us living, and that our parents need to understand. Uh, I do understand saying things like uh, he thanks them for, not him, any child thanks their parents for disciplining them by beating or whatever means, or forcefully sending them to tuitions. Otherwise, let's say they would not have had such a great career or something like that in the traditional 9 to 5 uh, framework. Then what is actually success? Uh, in India, where we have the highest rate of burnout, are we actually successful? Or are we not doing this just because of the parental or societal pressure, or the people are forced to do those stuff, or do those 9 to 5 jobs because for the survivor of their family or whatever? Um, I won't name the company, but we have seen a company which is deemed a dream company by many. One of their employees died due to the mental pressure that they were going through. Now, if you ask the parent of that, the female, then of course they would say that she is successful and things like that. But success is not so objective that you are earning something or you are into, a specific job, then you're successful. Success is more of a subjective term. Maybe she was not very inclined to do that thing, and that led to whatever unfortunate thing happened. So I would agree that mental health need to be taught, of course, not in the traditional form, because if we implement in the traditional form, then it is going to be a easy grab, or a low hanging fruit for the students to kind of make sure their percentages are improved. This should be a more practical. This should be implemented in a more practical form, so that uh, grades are not really implemented by this mental health subject, but it is taught in such a way that students are able to handle situations, because in India, one in every three student below the age of 18 is depressed. And living in a country where almost half of our population is under, uh, I don't remember, it was 25 or 23. This is a great deal, and we should look into it and try to figure out different ways to counter it. Yeah, Rose.
Thank you so much, Prince. And there is like this other point that I'd like to bring up. You need not necessarily be abused by the educational system in the country, or like have like an abusive situation going on at your home to develop trauma, because honestly, mental health is such a sensitive topic. And honestly, like for example, let's say you were a kid and you were at a very tender age out shopping with your mother, and you guys lose track of each other. She didn't necessarily abandon you. You just got lost for a second before she came back to get you. But in that moment, at that tender age, you might have developed a sense of fear of abandonment, which you tend to carry into your youth and your older age. And if not addressed, that becomes such a huge problem. And there are also cases where there is not necessarily a perpetrator and a victim. For example, your parents only appreciated you as a kid if your grades were up to the standards they set for you. Now, this does not necessarily this cannot necessarily be labeled as abusive behavior. Maybe that was in their mind that this was the only way that my kid is going to keep up with his grades, right? But now it is possible that your self-worth is tied to your grades. Every time you get a low grade, you feel bad about yourself or you feel worthless. So there are more nuanced things and like these intricate aspects of mental health that are not really talked about. Abuse or being suppressed or like being bullied are not the only causes for mental health issues. So I think even these need to be taken into consideration. You could be very well fitted into the educational system and come from a really healthy family and still have these issues. So that was one point I wanted to make. And with that said, I'll now let Alvin go ahead.
Yes, I do agree with the many of the points, but I don't think that people can't blame for others for their what to say, for the sufferings they have suffered, because when we truly need to liberate ourselves from the issues we faced, we only can rely ourselves. The best word for that is personal growth. I do agree that mental health should be a very huge path in our life, but it can be only done through self improvement, which can be done to the parents' side of life. But if the parent side of life is, I don't mean everyone, but if the parent sides of life is a even bit a side of negative, a trauma can just stir you into a well of nightmare. That's why even in the adult age, the adults are go to therapists and ask for advice and how can I uh, get rid of this trauma and how can I be liberated from these problems. The only thing is for the present is now that there is no, how can I say, direct medication for that. There is a medication for suppressing depression for that, but I meant for truly in order to liberate yourself, you have to distract from whatever thoughts that are affecting you or negatively, and distract from that thoughts, and you have to concentrate on yourself. When you concentrate on yourself and develop self improvement and develop your own skills, you start to affect others automatically. You start to affect your family, your friends. Mental health is such a huge topic that it could not only change you, it could even change the country itself. You may think it's, oh, why you're telling such a crazy thing? Like, how can your mental health for one being can change your entire? Let's just say a person is giving a lecture about mental health and inspiring talk, and you hear that. Don't you feel like that inspiring talk can be included in your life, and you can also relate to that talk? That's why mental health is a very huge topic, because every one of them can influence every others. Even though we might not have the mental health curriculum in our school systems, we should develop it on our own, because it plays a huge role in our life. That's all.
Thank you, Alvin. Raghav, please.
Yeah. So I had a specific point of disagreement with what I think Aniket was the one who was talking about, like how sometimes the parents are good, and it's just that it's better to listen to them than not. I think this is all happening because of a fundamental flaw in the educational system. That none of the kids actually know what they're doing. A lot of them, they don't understand why they're going to school. They just go because like everybody else goes to school, and they don't know what they're doing there. They don't know what is expected of them other than scoring high in exams and all that. Like what they and this lack of a larger sense of purpose is so existentially negative for any human being. When we all enter into the world, like we are as we grow up, like there is a fundamental lack of clarity about purpose. Like you all of us like went through this like extremely traumatic experience of like just entering this world and nothing is familiar. And I call it traumatic because like it is painful to not know what the hell is going on. And a lot of kids are sensitive to that. They want to understand. They're curious about why everything is the way it is. This is a very existential problem. And on top of this, like you're putting them through a system that doesn't let you think about anything. You are occupied so much of your time into this meaningless competition that you've never really had a chance to like ask questions about the nature of reality, or like be curious in general, because that is a very natural instinct for children. So when you're taking that away from them, they're taking the resources of time and energy to think about these things, and then you're putting them through this meaningless rat race. It is obviously distressing. And obviously, like kids don't want to go to school because like they don't want to do this. So in that situation, the good thing is not to like beat them up and then like make them do it anyway, because there is potential for other things going wrong outside, like for example bad friends, or you get into drugs or something like that. So I mean that's obviously a good thing, but putting them through this existential misery is not the best alternative either. So I think overall there has to be like a civilizational clarity about the way we are raising our children, um, giving them the space to actually reflect upon the larger things, give them an understanding of the larger aspect of why they're doing anything. I think this is something that we can solve by changing the way the education system works. I mean, I actually have another nonprofit that I work with that, we're trying to transform the way education happens. And one of the things that we're trying to bring into the picture is portfolio-based assessments. So when you have a child, have a portfolio about their own performance. Okay, so they're not going to be failed year on year, or like they're not going to be passed year on year. Every child has a like individual place or like the position that they're in right now, and you actually like let them do whatever they think is necessary for them, and then you have like an assessment that goes on to their portfolio of like all the projects they've done, all the things that they've done, and different kids have different appetites for what they want to do. So having an open model like that, where you basically let the child decide how they want to pursue their learning, and so that they have an understanding that they are the owners of this product that they are. Like they are like think of them like a startup company. If you give them the responsibility of managing the startup company by like building up its portfolio and presenting it to the prospective universities or job applications that they want to pursue, making themselves look attractive is the goal, and they understand that. So then they basically like pick and choose what they can do to be attractive to the right kind of company or the right kind of university. So having that kind of freedom at an early age actually matures the children much faster. And I've from what I've seen, I've been doing this for the past 5 years, to conducting experiments on pedagogy, and the kids love it. They love doing things that they started and they chose, and they are pursuing. Like, they'll spend hours more than what they would spend if you were to force them. Actually, like, bringing their interest into something, and then, like, having a uh, properly designed structure to the curriculum where they're actually learning as they go through it, and they're doing it on their own accord. That actually is such an exciting thing. Actually can alleviate a lot of mental stresses. Even they have an outlet to, like, express their creativity and all this. So I think that kind of, like, a pedagogical shift in like the way the education is conducted is the actual solution, not parents forcing their kids to do it anyway. I think that's a very rudimentary response to it.
Thank you, Raghav. Sandeep, please go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say almost the exact same thing that Raghav have just said, and I would like to add some more points to it. So the fact that I don't think there is any parents in the world that doesn't inherently expect good things for their children. Maybe there are some exceptions, but in general, that's a generalized statement, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that what they're doing is good for them and good for the children. Neither they know that, and neither the children know that, right? So let's say if you put them through the STEM subjects, yeah, maybe they could become an engineer or a software engineer, and they could have a stable income. They might feel after 25 years, okay, because of my father, what he did as I was a child, now I am in a financially stable situation. You can take it two ways, right? Maybe he is supposed to be an engineer, he wants it, and he might have not understood that early in his life. Yeah, maybe that's a lucky chance for both parents and children. But there is another case that another person would have become an engineer, and he would never wanted it, and he could never get out of it because of the relationships that you surround yourself and your burdens that you have, the responsibilities you have to fulfill in your life. And then eventually it's that's an adult who failed as a child. I have a phrase when I have this discussions about child education, is like, a curious adult is the child that survived. If you've grown up into an adult and if you don't have the curiosity of a child, you're the human being that you were as a child is dead. And it could be the school system, it could be the society, it could be your parents. It doesn't matter. That child is dead, and to revive that child, you have to invest a lot. You have to invest the amount of energy that probably you may not be even able to invest to revive that kind of curiosity in an adult, right? So when see yeah, there may be some no parents that no making ends meet every day, and they expect that they don't want children to be like them, right? And guess what? There are billionaires in the world who doesn't want their children to be something they want to be, right? So it doesn't matter. Let's say if your child grows up and he's 25 and he's like, well, he doesn't have any mental issues, and then now today he decides to be a daily labor. How many parents are really from the heart will be happy for him? See, that's what matters, right? If you're not accepting the person as they are, even as an adult, how can you expect how can you expect the parents to accept a child who doesn't even know what he wants, who doesn't he's still exploring, right? There are, like, the human brain grows until you're 25 years old. Like, there are billions of connections happening between 0 to 5 years old. So it's an unknown world for the person himself. So putting someone into something and then say, okay, after some, if you try to quantify success in your own terms, not even financially, in your own terms, that is probably how your mental issues will be transferred into your children, and then their children, and then generation after generation. and into the society itself. So success is a subjective term, and it's better to leave that definition to the individual, not anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. I greatly agree with the point you made that success is subjective and everybody should get to decide what success means to them. So they don't really lose their inner child and like become this soulless, not curious adult just working away for the sake of survival. So thank you for that. Anybody else who wishes to speak next? Yes, please, Alvin, please go ahead.
Yes. Now we all do agree that health education or mental health should be a huge part of our life. Uh, is I don't know who it said pedagogy education system. I like that term a very lot because it helps the kids to think in a critical thinking manner, and scientifically thinking manner to analyze the world in a different things, to analyze the world from a different perspective, to understand the concepts uh, in a manner that they could find anything and everything would be interesting. Whereas if you see our education system, it's not so diverse. It's like it's structured to developing into a STEM field like English, maths, and your regional language, science, social. I think majorly for every school, these subjects are the major subjects. Other than that, there are no interdisciplinary studies for the. There are interdisciplinary studies. I have heard of them, but they are not for majorly for the people. I don't even heard like psychology or philosophical lessons about lessons in our curriculum, but they are in our curriculum, but they are not implemented in every other school because they say like there are no teachers for that, that there are no research for that. Like we should develop a diverse uh, curriculum in order to grow as an individual. So mental health is not just a single topic. It can be reference from various topics like sociological issues, economical issues, or philosophical debates, or psychological thinking, psychological thought processes. Everything can be related to mental health. So if if the people are afraid to say that are afraid to stigmatize the mental health as a what to say a taboo topic, we can suggest to them as an alternative topic such as the study of psychology. It is the interdisciplinary studies of philosophy and socialism and ethics and so much more. It is the study of mind and behavior, where we are studying about mental health itself. Now, when you say to your parents about psychology, I am studying psychology in our schools, they would be like, wow, it is so different from what we are learning. And we can easily, uh, we don't even need to stigmatize mental health because we are using alternative terms like psychology. Because if you say mental issues, it is a uh, it's like stigmatized as a that They are even people afraid to talk about that topic because they think like, oh, is he going to counseling? Is his child is going to what? His child is going to counseling? I think that's a bad. I think that is he mentally unfit. Even for going to a job, they will ask for mental wellness certificate or mentally is he mentally fit for the job. This makes the people to be afraid to go to even to the be to go to a psychologist and ask for answers. So the better way for us to improve in our life is to go from an critical thinking perspective and scientific thinking perspective. uh, from that perspective, we can learn many things that we are not aware of. We can see the world in a various perspectives that we didn't know of. So we can learn from things from others and even opinions of others because the opinions of others decides our lives. The opinions of others may not decides your life, but it can decide others' lives. So make sure to take everything that is positive in your life and always ignore the negative things. And this is the main point I would like to end the conversation. Always critically analyze the negative things. Don't even ignore the negative things. Just because negative things can affect you doesn't mean that they are bad. Everything is bad. If they are bad after you critically analyze it, then it is bad. But without critically analyzing the thought process of the others, you cannot say everything is bad and everything is good. So critical thinking is should be a major part in curriculum as mental issues and mental health. Thank you. I would like to end my conclusion.
Thank you, Alvin. Prince, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. Uh, First of all, since we are talking on this topic, and I would like to take this opportunity and also say that we were talking about this career and how parents are responsible for us having a better career path that is quote unquote more stable according to them. Now, this also comes as, of course, I'm not going against any parents. They always want the best of us, but in this capitalist world where since our parents were students, the education system has gone through a greater change. A corporatization of education system has happened, and due to which we see a lot of changes in the behavior of the teachers and how much pressure the students these days have for their career and stuff like that. And this an acknowledgement of the ability of a child to take his own decisions about his career and life, and not acknowledging his mental ability is one of the reasons why this pressurizing of a student to study a certain subject or a stream happens. And uh, I do agree with Raghav that students do know that what they want to study, and if they are made to be responsible for the choices that they are making, then it also creates a great amount of accountability into them. Now to the current topic, uh, one of the speakers said that mental health is an international issue. Mental health is a human issue. We need to acknowledge that someone who's going for a mental health checkup is not always mentally insane. If I try to, even though it's false equivalence, but even if I try to equate it with our physical health, then it is just like saying, let's say a person is going for a physical examination, then that person must be suffering from cancer. It's not always that. Uh, uh, I don't think any of us, really kind of disagree on this topic that mental health should be incorporated into the education system. And I personally did think that after this new education policy, we would be having that. But it's just such a shame that how it has turned out to be. And uh, I guess the debate now is more or less about how the curricula should be implemented to make sure that it is beneficial to the greater lot. Yeah, Rose.
Thank you, Prince. Anybody else who wishes to speak next? Yes, please, Devraj, go ahead. Devraj, please go ahead. If you're speaking, you're on mute. I think we all agree that mental health should be a part of the educational curriculum at this point. The only thing is, the only thing we have to discuss based on our own individual perspectives is to what extent and how do we implement it, like Prince said. So I guess we'll be moving into the unmoderated session. So general rules for this part of the session is that speakers will no longer be required to raise their hands. And when you're speaking, please be respectful to each other and don't cut each other off. Speak one after another. Anybody wanting to speak can just go ahead.
So let's just talk. Let's see this topic from a critical perspective. What are the difficulties do you think in implementing mental health subjects in our curriculum? Do you think we could face challenges in including this? Who would you think would oppose this decision in including the mental health topics in our education system?
Personally, I think some parents, if not the majority of parents, would be against it because, there's a lot of stigma around it. And parents who are not very well aware about this whole situation and the importance of mental health might see it as, the schools and the government who is implementing mental health into the curriculum as treating their child as an insane individual. So there might be a little bit of resistance from most parents, is what I believe.
And even if there's not, is our school educational framework even capable of, making sure that this remains as what is, intended out of it, and it does not turn out to be. We have physical health education as a subject in our schools as well, but we all know how that goes. We have to prepare a practical file of a sport that we should be playing, and if not physical education as a sport, we all have free games period in our schools. Uh, it's more of a a period that our maths teacher can take whenever he wants if his syllabus is not going up to the mark. So it should be implemented in a more practical and uh, I would say reasonable form so that something good could come out of it.
So I may slightly lean towards opposing to the fact that you have to include mental health in the curriculum. I am okay to an extent where the curriculum can be a sort of a generalized thing. Like, let's say if the activities themselves lessen the the chances of having a mental issue for the children, and emphasizing more on psychological aspects of growing children into the curriculum, instead of the mental health itself as a direct I don't know, as of a main focus that it has to be dealt in a certain way. As I think Raghav has pointed out in a use case, like a certain NGO could come in and so I think what he's trying to say is the mental health, the institution, like the medical professional and the so-called patient could, as because it's a child, they can be addressed at the schooling itself as a part of the curriculum. If that is what it means, yes, that is also a viable option, I believe. But apart from that, I think yeah. So if it is going to be like, it has to be a very important, like if you have to focus on too much on it, like what I'm trying to say is the measures to the changes to the education system itself should be able to reflect upon the reduction in mental issues for the children. That's what I'm trying to say.
But is the incorporation of mental health not also a tool, such that the students are well equipped to deal with those mental health issues going further into their adulthood as well? Because uh, everyone knows that the mental pressure or the stress is only going to increase after they attain their adulthood.
Uh, Somewhere I believe that self-inquiry should be inculcated into the children's rather than just going and bringing mental health experts, counselors into the school and all. I guess self-inquiry could do a much more impactful realization to the children than someone else. And this practice can be introduced to the children through stories, I feel. Like, stories is something that unconsciously students get the relation to a larger extent than someone just telling externally कि ये ऐसा करो तो ऐसा होएगा. Uh, yeah, that's it.
I mean, another approach to it could be including workshops, mental health workshops in the curriculum, not in a way of like coming in and telling children that they have issues and this is what you need to do, but to come in and tell people what stress and anxiety feels like in different forms. And if they are able to identify that at an appropriate age within themselves, then show them possible ways of how to identify their triggers and how to deal with it. So basically, a workshop for like teaching children how to emotionally regulate themselves and find healthy coping mechanisms.
I think one person has said that when we go towards like public exams times like 10th 12th, we tend to ignore no we not tend to ignore, adults tend to ignore the PT classes that was a huge part of our school life, like from first standard to ninth, I guess. Even ninth is beginning to be ninth standard students are starting to study 10th standard syllabus nowadays, and they are getting pressure to go to tuitions and to study all these things. So I think the better alternative is for workshops and including a subject into our syllabus, because it's it will be a gradual process instead of a fast progress. We can help conduct workshops for PT teachers because they play a huge role in our lives. We should also educate the 10th and 12th teachers to follow PT classes in our uh, day-to-day life, because physical health is very important as mental health, because physical health is also related to mental health. Without proper physical health, you cannot have proper mental health. So uh, I didn't understand about it quite well until I was after finishing my school. I understand the importance of physical health, and I understand why it was included from a young age that PT classes was included. I thought it was just fun and fun games and just enjoying time, like a break period or something like that. But uh, I now realize that it is more than that. PT classes are so important in our life. It's like uh, helping us to relieve our stress, even inside or outside anything. So that's all.
See, the very fact the education system itself is rigged up against the mental well-being, because the way the education system is set up, not just in India, the world, same age group children are segregated, like in a, it's an industrialized way of educating the future generations, which didn't exist before the industrial revolution. The very fact that it has started is to provide the workforce for the industries, the wars that we fought in the history. And the same kind of education system from England has propagated to the rest of the world even today. So it begs a question that a 7-year-old child is being sit with a 7-year-old child all day long, and they will grow up with the same aged person for the next 15 years is absurd. Because when it comes to mental health, you need the perception of the elders and the youngers. You have to have that kind of a connection towards what the elder people are doing, what I can learn from them. If these if people, if children are being segregated with the on the basis of age, that is the starting point of a lot of issues that arise, down the line. If I have to take an example of the Indian historic education system like Gurukul, right? There is no such thing called, they don't segregate children as per their age. All age children learn the same poem and the same instance, and they teach all of them the same thing if they want to teach it the same thing, right? But it's not like they will, everybody will be taught the same thing. But the the knowledge transfer between, because if a 7-year-old child has become 13-year-old, and then he sees a 7-year-old child comes in, and then he has an empathy towards him, right? And he has a connection. Okay, this is where I've struggled. Now it's a point where the person who already has that knowledge or experience then come in and reduce the burden on the future generation. It happens. It doesn't happen just one time. It happens on a generation basis. Like if you have that kind of system for hundreds of years, the very fact that these mental issues arise will be very less, because they will be addressed at the root level. So if it is like, we are keeping the problem and we are trying to it is like, instead of, it's like prevention is better than cure, something like that, right? So if you have a way to prevent having a mental issue, what is the point of creating it and then trying to solve it within the same system which created it? So I think this debate has to go down much deeper. It's not just about the mental issue, it's mental health issue. It's about the education system itself and the pressure that it puts on the society and the parents, because it is a standardized system that gives certain image of a success or certain image of an accomplishment to the people that they don't want to do it, and that brings in a peer pressure and the societal pressure to them, which only, let's say, 10% or 20% of the human beings, the children, are only into math, science, and the way the education system is set up, and maybe like 70-80% of the children doesn't even want to do the way it is done. So we are trying to discriminate or like show the 80% of the children, like, okay, this is how you have to be. They don't want to be like that. So we are creating an image that is a source of this kind of you know a mental imbalance, that and the stigma that comes along with it.
That's really like a very valid point, Sandeep. Like mental health being a taboo topic for such a long time, especially in our country, I think even if the general public is, like, I don't know, a miracle or whatever, is suddenly like very accepting of it being a part of the educational curriculum, or it at least forming like a moderately important part of the educational curriculum. Overemphasis of mental health can also lead to like the glamorization of mental issues. Now, people might not really agree with me on this, but when something has been uh, thought of like a taboo for such a long time and suddenly it is so easily accessible, it becomes glamorized. So, if it has to form a part of the educational curriculum for like kids who vary from ages 6 to 20, like I'm talking about like schooling, right? So like these ages are like really tender, and when something like this suddenly becomes very easily accessible, and in the worst case scenario, if it becomes glamorized, I think we might see a lot of negative self-diagnosis, which leads to another problem. So there needs to be a proper balance between how we approach.
Yeah, certainly, because anything that has been pulled or pushed to one side or another, and it gradually gets traction to be pulled to the other side, and it does tends to have a negative effect initially, but it's like a cat and mouse game, right? It always leans towards left and right at certain point, and then there will be certain stable times that, okay, at some point, then it will get stabilized, that okay, this is, then people understand that okay, this is not a mental issue, this is how human the nature itself is. And it's like a learning process, and we have to go through that.
Right. So, yeah, I completely agree with that. So, what I believe, if we are going to like uh, take in mental health as a part of the curriculum, is that not to underemphasize it or to treat it as a taboo like we do right now, but also not to overemphasize it. So as to, not make it like some really cool pop culture thing, because I think we have seen certain cases where uh, serious mental health illnesses like depression or anxiety have been kind of glamorized, which is not a very ideal thing to do because younger audience might really think it's a cool thing to have. It's really not.
When it comes to the this glamorization, we also have to consider the globalized world, that the soft power of the West has effect on the rest of the cultures in the world, and the absorption of the content on the internet, and the way the societies have been set up to be a part of the mirage society of the West. So see, the that's how it is. Like, if they are trying to glamorize it, it has to come from somewhere, because it has been glamorized somewhere else, right?
Right, that's true. But if you look at it from like a globalized point of view, where one place where I think the youth is more leaning toward the Western culture more than our own, right? So on one end, they're absorbing this kind of culture, their thoughts and their beliefs, and in one way or another, this glamorization of having mental health issues. And in their real life, the physical reality that they live in the country, that same topic becomes a taboo. So I think we are already at a very unique disadvantage, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think like the balance, you know, implementation of mental health where we are not treating it as a taboo and we are like removing the stigma around it, but at the same time, we are not overemphasizing it and letting people, assess themselves and seek help when they want to and in ways that they want to, right? I think that would be the ideal solution according to me.
Also, they have to address the root cause of it, right? That's the If they don't address the root cause of it, it is going to come back and bite you again. So the root
Yeah,
cause of it has to be addressed and acknowledged, and appropriate measures has to be taken from both the education system and the parents and the society, so that it will be a cycle instead of instead of a reactive measure, it could be a preventive measure.
right. I completely agree with that one.
Yeah, if I think we are done, if we can close the
Yeah,
session.
this was a great session. Thank you for being here, everyone. See you in the next one.
Thank you, Rose.